We have a lot of business people here that perhaps are not totally familiar with how software development works. So I just brought a simplified version of a process, and I just want to walk everyone through it, because then we go through a case very quickly, and you can start understanding how we connect data with expertise, and then say, okay, what do you take from that, right? So when you talk about software, of course, it starts from ideas. Oh, we're going to automate something, or we're going to standardize the process, or anything like that. But if you have a software running, you also have bugs. So people are complaining, this doesn't work, it's too slow, it's crashing. Whatever it is, that's coming through to the company as well. And with the pressure to deliver the fixes, the new features, scale the number of users, whatever it is that is pressuring the business, sometimes there'll be shortcuts. And when you take a shortcut, you need to come back and improve that piece of software later. And this shortcut has many forms, right? But basically, if you think about building, and if you're constructing a building and you don't know if you need 20 floors or not, and you only have money to build for 5 floors, you build the foundations and start selling and say, oh, it could be actually 50 floors. But you have to go back to the foundations. The problem, because it's an intangible and you can't see, well, it's easy to commercially put pressure and just build on top of it, right? In software development, you've got these areas that will fit into a roadmap. So we say, okay, look, there's a planning, and there are all sorts of people. There'll be a business analyst looking at what needs to be done and what's the market. Then there'll be a product owner that will say, okay, we see that, and we'll make a plan for the roadmap. What are the fixes? What are urgent? What not? What are the technical improvements we're going to do? What we're going to leave for later? And what are the features we're going to launch? That gets broken down in this agile world into jargon words, right? Like epics. Epics is just a big chunk of work that gets broken down into what they call stories. And a story is a small chunk of work that you're supposed to finish in a sprint. And a sprint is a 2-week work. So you make a plan and you say, okay, in these 2 weeks, we work together in these pieces. So let's imagine I want to do a web shop. A web shop is an epic. But now I just want the front page and being able to log in. So these are 2 stories. And we're going to do these 2 bits in 2 weeks. It's not the whole shop, but it's finished. And I start progressing and building my software, right? So that's one way to do it. It's not the only way, but it's one way. And sometimes you have bugs to fix and other tasks and so on. You move into software development, you move into the sprint, people work for 2 weeks, they produce the software. Software is not only code, it's tests, it's documentation. Otherwise, everything is in the heads of the people. It's all tacit knowledge. If you don't document, you don't really have an asset. People are the asset. For software to become the asset, you have to have it properly documented with test automation. And that's really hard to understand, because the business thinks, oh, that's just overhead. In the beginning, yes, but when you succeed, that's what makes it an asset. Otherwise, it's just code that the next guy will have to read and try to understand again, because it makes no sense. It's like reinventing the wheel every time.
I just want to sort of add to that. So, on the building side, what you see is underneath the hood sometimes, people actually replicate the system and then connect the two with a data layer. And you're saying, oh, so what you're really telling me is you can't really scale your system. You're having to replicate. And they go, but that works. I said, well, maybe it does, but it becomes a problem when I want to really load it up. You're not going to be able to do that very quickly. And then on the sprints and the way they're doing that, there are certain metrics and benchmarks you can use. You can look at their defect log, how many defects are they getting out, etc. When you're talking to the customers, you can see the customer calls and the number of issues that they've raised. And also, I always think it's really important, because all this sort of product tech in some way is front-facing, is that customer experience that they're getting. And they should be, as we talk about sort of DevOps, which is what you're kind of explaining there, and is that they should be doing that with a sort of customer view all the time. That's the whole idea of this agile, the sprint working, is that they incorporate those requirements. They're thinking always about the end user of this and building that in before it's too late when they get to the final code.
Exactly. So then you get to integrate that into the software that was there before, and now they need to work together, and that is not always easy. So if it's automated, it's easy. If it's all manual, it's hard. And then it's finally done. It's released. Now you can have ChatGPT Plus, and it's a paid service, and it's available. And then you got happy users, hopefully, and some angry ones creating new bugs, and the cycle continues. So you have this train of people trying to understand what they should do, what they shouldn't, prioritizing that on the roadmap. And one of the things that we need to understand is that if you just look at the code, you miss the whole picture. And the business value is here. It's what Alexis was saying. The people using it and paying for it and finding value in it. So if you don't take the whole picture into account, if you don't look at the product, the processes, and the people doing it, you only get part of the story.